Hello and welcome to Four Wheels Good, your designated driver throughout the whole motoring world. And on the show today we have a report from Beverley Hills in California by our US correspondent Steve Parker. He's been hanging about with wealthy owners of all kinds of classic cars. Nicky Fox brings us the lowdown on Audi's A3 and John Wright gets mechanical in his studio garage in Inside Motors. But first, let's turn our attention to Scandinavia and Saab. With the triumph of the 9.5, the replacement of the Saab 9000, it was clear that it wouldn't be long before the 900 also bore a successor. That time has arrived and Ian Royle went to investigate.
Saab, a name synonymous with safety, reliability, great big bumpers, ABBA and of course Sweden. Well, some of those items are behind them because Saab have come a very long way in the past few years and build some very desirable cars now. Cars like this, the new 9.3. Now, hang on a minute, you're thinking, this is a 900 surely. Well, it's not. This is the all-new Saab 9.3 and it's had major revisions over the 900, or so Saab tell us. Now, I've never quite been able to make my mind up about Saab cars. Don't get me wrong, they make some very good cars and I've considered buying one or two over the years, but never quite been able to take the plunge for some reason. Maybe because you think they're not quite in the same league as, say, BMW or Mercedes, but perhaps that's where Saab are actually the winners in all this. Now, thankfully, the days of those huge black bumpers that we saw on the 900 back in the 1980s and early 90s have long gone. These days, they're a lot more refined. But of course, safety is still paramount for Saab cars. And I'll never forget the 900 series that my parents-in-law had back in the 1980s. It was comfortable, it was safe, and it was secure. And of course, that's what Saab are hoping for with the new 9.3 to continue those long-held traditions. Now look at this, surely the star of the Saab range, the new 9.3 convertible. It looks visually very similar to the old 900 convertible, but there are one or two changes that you might spot if you look very closely at it. But it is a beautiful looking, very desirable. The hood is simplicity itself. The same hood that Mercedes used on their cabriolets and convertibles from years gone by. And it's so simple, it all folds neatly back into the rear, the windows go down, and it's open-top motoring at its best. Now, the 9.3 comes in a choice of three different styles, as with the 900 that it replaced. There's the 3-door, a 5-door, and this 3-door convertible too. Plus, of course, you get a choice of 4 different engines. More about that later. Prices start from £16,500, rising to just over £30,000 for something like this, the SE convertible, that's got everything on it. Trim is very good too, generally anyway. You get 3 different trim levels. There's standard, there's an S and an SE, and something like this, the 9.3 SE convertible, has basically everything on it. Although one thing that the standard car doesn't have on is an alarm, which is rather surprising. It's got an immobiliser, but no alarm on a car costing £16,500. Rather mean. So let's see if the revisions that Saab say they've made to the 9.3 over the existing 900 series really work and really come into play. Let's take this gorgeous 9.3 turbo convertible for a spin. John, you're showing us the new 9.3 here today. A lot of people would think, what's the difference between the 900 and the new 9.3? Perhaps you can just run through some of the main points in the evolution of the 9.3.
Yes, I mean, it reminds you of the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. We've made a few external changes. The bumper treatments and the grille, front and rear, are different. but it's really the changes under the skin on 9.3 which I think are significant. We've remodelled a lot of the front suspension, the front struts and the dampers, and we've got more spring travel. What this adds up to on the road, we think, is a more compliant ride and more direct, quicker steering as well. And we think it's quite an advance over 900.
Now, you'll obviously be looking for original 900 customers to come into the 9.3. Who else do you think you might pull in terms of from other brands?
Well, we certainly think we've got a competitive proposition here for the BMW drivers, Audi drivers, but we know with 900 a lot we're also trading up from some of the volume brands, so we think we've got a more attractive proposition here.
And how do prices compare up against either the other brands and over the old 900 range?
Well, we've done a lot of competitor analysis in terms of pricing and equipment you get in the car, and we know, as I think we've demonstrated today, that pricing-wise it undercuts, we think, most of the competition. There are a lot of important standard items in our cars which we may have to pay for as extras with other competitors without going into a lot of detail. On average, as the car stands, it's about 2.5% more than 900. But if you add in the price and the improvement in specifications, you could argue it's really not gone up at all. So we're maintaining our position in the market as offering something which we think is very competitive.
Now, what about pricing over the original 900 and over your competitors? How does the new 9.3 compare up?
Well, we think, of course, it compares very favourably. We really do have a very high level of standard specification in our cars, and there are many items, electric windows and the like, alarm immobilisers, which we may have to pay extra for. We've done the analysis, and we do know, certainly as regards our major competitors, religion sometimes forbids me mentioning names, but certainly BMW and Audi, we are, I think, significantly better value than those. And we'll be getting customers, as we always do, from those marques, and also the other end, the volume end of the market, people trading up, I think, can be attracted into these cars.
The car's steering, ride and handling are all considerably improved, taking the dynamics of 9.3 much closer to 9.5 levels. On the steering, they've strengthened the rack mountings and reduced the steering gear ratio. On the road, that gives the driver a quicker, more direct and precise response. They've now fitted an hydraulic clutch across the whole range, and again that improves feel and control for the driver and eases the process of gear changing. Saab being Saab, their engineers are always keen to improve levels of safety, and 9.3 has two important new features. First, those front seats have a real safety bonus. They're fitted with interactive head restraints, just like the 9.5s. These restraints give useful protection against neck whiplash, which is the most common type of road injury. And the value of that feature was recently recognised when Saab won the Prince Michael Road Safety Award for technical innovation. The other important safety improvement is the standard fitment of twin-section side impact airbags, giving both head and chest protection. The big news under the bonnet of the new 9.3 is the introduction of Saab's first ever diesel engine. They haven't had one before because, frankly, they didn't believe a diesel could offer the level of refinement that they required. Well, all that has now changed with the arrival of a 2.2-litre direct injection turbo diesel with 4 valves per cylinder and dual overhead camshafts, and it delivers both strong performance and good economy, 0 to 60 in just over 10 seconds, and a combined cycle of 42 miles per gallon, and cruising will return over 52 miles per gallon. Now, Saab tell us that there are over 1,100 changes on the new 9.3 over the original 900 series, and most of those changes you can't see and you won't know about. They're there under the skin, so to speak. But they have improved the brakes, the suspension, the handling. All round, the 9.3 is a better car than the 900, so they tell us anyway. It's very difficult for us to judge on a quick test like we have today whether that is in fact true. Now, this of course is the new 9.3 convertible I'm driving at the moment, and of course the old 900 convertible is a car that did wonders for Saab's image. It was a car to be seen in, very chic, very stylish, lots of people wanted them, and they sold tremendously well for Saab. This is the 2-litre turbo that I'm driving at the moment, and of course it has that wonderful Saab turbo engine. When you put your foot down hard, you get such a kick in the backside. It's great to drive. Now, there's no doubt that the new Saab 9.3 is a far better car than the 900 series it replaces, not to diminish, of course, the 900 series. And that can only help bring a whole new breed of consumers into the Saab name, perhaps from BMW, from Mercedes and from Audi, and who knows where else. And also the advent of that new Saab turbo diesel engine, a first, remember, for them, that 2.2 turbo diesel engine, can only help bring a whole new breed of customers to the Saab brand.
A worthy successor to the 900, the 9.3, and Saab must really feel that the diesel engine is able to contend with its petrol counterparts. Now, Nicky Fox has been taking another look at a car which is becoming an increasingly common sight. Audi's A3 is a car which is both pleasing to the eye and has great performance on the road, which is why more and more of you are opting for Audi.
Next time you park, don't just dash for the shops. Stop. Take a good look round and count the hatchbacks. We love them. For singles, couples and small families, they're an ideal mix of fun and practicality, and the hot hatch in particular remains quite a status symbol. Now take a careful look at this small car. Definitely an Audi from the front, something smart from the side and an Audi Avant from the back. Put it all together and it's the new Audi A3 1.8 Sport. Audis are already popular with British executives, those who like their technology sleek, modern and understated. So you can see the very niche the A3 was designed to create and fill within the hatchback segment. Audi hopes that by offering a smaller car with all the prestige of its larger models, it can shake plenty of cash out of this part of the market. So let's have one on the drive. This costs nearly £17,000, which is £400 more than a BMW Ti Compact. However, the A3s start at £14,000 for a basic 1.6 and go right up to £18,000 for the Turbo Sport. Key in, past Audi's latest security system, with which you get a choice. You can program the central locking 3 different ways. Either open the driver's door and the fuel cap, or add the boot, or open everything. The interior is quietly restrained apart from the upholstery, but it is all very well planned and there's concealed storage space everywhere. And I mean everywhere. The driver's seat and the wheel are both fully adjustable to give a spot-on driving position. 2 features I particularly like. There's real headroom carved into the roof and a seat that goes back to precisely where you set it. Cleverly, the designers have pushed the wheels right out to the sides, which has several benefits, the most practical of which is that the luggage space is maximised. Let's go! No doubt about it, Audi expects you to pay up to make a style statement ahead of other German makes. But there's no denying Audi's done a great job on this car. The suspension and handling are excellent, and it comes with ABS, EBD, EDL, all high-tech torque for smart brakes and traction control. The engine revs freely up to 60 in 10 seconds, and there's a claimed top speed of 126 miles an hour. If you like the look but not the price tag, the standard A3 1.8 costs £1,500 less for much the same performance if fewer frills. The cabin remains quiet at all speeds, and I'm sure it would cruise at 100 with no fuss at all. The A3 is well placed to put Audi ahead in the hatchback market. Perhaps Audi should now rework its slogan, Vorsprung durch Marketing.
It's time to take a break now, but join us afterwards to enjoy the sunny delights of the Beverley Hills Classic Car Show. And don't forget, John Wright will be here to soothe your motoring worries. See you then. Welcome back to Four Wheels Good, the palace of motoring pleasure. If your dreams of our four-wheeled friends, then we may just make them come true. Let's get on our fast jet again and wing our way stateside. Steve Parker, our very own American motoring fanatic, has been working hard hanging out with the glamorous and wealthy in the Californian sun. He's been doing this in order that you might be able to enjoy the delights of a Beverley Hills Classic Car Show.
Once a year, the good citizens of Beverly Hills clean out their garages and drive everything they have in the back down to Beverly Hills High School for the charity car show. It could be anything from this $300,000 Tucker, one of 50 ever made, to a car like this, a priceless 1930s Duesenberg, driven by William Boyd 60 years ago right here in Beverly Hills. He was the actor who played the cowboy Hopalong Cassidy. Tell us about the car you're showing today.
This is a 37 Ford, and it's been chopped, lowered. It's got a big engine in it. It's a 350 bored out to about 365, so it's develops about 500 horsepower, and it's pretty quick.
Now, you drive your cars. You don't just leave them in the garage.
No, well, I don't drive the Ferraris as much anymore. Those stay in the garage. And I drive the hot rods a lot. Yeah, this I drive all the time. I try to find people I can race on the street with, and then I can always get a ticket.
Now look at this ground clearance on this 1951 Studebaker. Can you imagine driving this over those Pennine Hill roads? Studebaker is very smooth, very contemporary looking, even for a 1951 car. And the new trend in American hot rodding is a mixture of the old and the new, as you can see by using the old dashboard and speedometer and the new switchgear.
This car here is kind of reminiscent of the genesis of hot rodding in 1939. And what we have here is the 40s kind of configuration, ready to go for the Mexican road race. And what made it special was the Bulldog front end, which basically they took the chassis and they Z'd it around the front axle using a stock front axle. And then the Duval windshield, which is kind of reminiscent of a motorboat of the 30s and 40s. And running the exhaust through the frame, through the chassis, so that it wouldn't get tangled in any obstacles in the road running through Mexico.
If it were 40 years ago and it were Beverly Hills and I was a movie star, I might be driving one of these, a dual Ghia. Handcrafted in Italy, 440 Chrysler V8. They made 117 of them, 40 remain. This one was owned by Ava Gardner.
It weighs 3,000 pounds, wet with me in it. It's front-wheel drive. It's a small block Chevrolet engine. Puts out about roughly 825 horsepower.
And how does it manage to produce that much power?
Well, we supercharge it with a Vortex supercharger, and we've been 300 miles an hour.
How do you compare this show to others?
Oh, this is the family sort of show. This is Beverly Hills and it's Environs. I'm here because it's close to home.
Tell us about the Packard you're showing here today.
I've had it about 12 years now, and I've driven it across the country to New York, and it goes like the wind. Run rings around any Silver Ghost.
Well, we've run into all sorts of celebrities and stars now all over the world at the Beverly Hills Auto Show. But imagine we ran into someone from Lancaster or something from Lancaster. It's a 1949 Rolls Royce that was owned by a doctor in Lancaster. It moved to Los Angeles many years ago, has been in many, many movies, including Hook with Robin Williams that came out a couple of years ago. From Lancaster to Beverly Hills.
When I bought this car, I loved it so much I swore I'd never sell it, and I've held up to my promise. I bought it in 1952. That's 44 years ago that I've had this car, and it's never been in storage any of that time. I've driven it all the time.
You know, the people of Beverly Hills love to customize and accessorize their cars and trucks just like anybody else. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's personal Hummer. Now, I don't know what he's put on the rear axle of this thing, but I have a feeling that somewhere in Beverly Hills there's a bull singing soprano.
You'd better watch your Hummer over bumps, Arnold. Thanks there to Steve Parker for that report. I think I can smell the sweet scent of engine oil and hear the war cry of the mustachioed master mechanic. It's John Wright and he's Right Inside Motors.
setting? Yeah, till 12. Seems a long way down. Right, just fold these little tails over. That's that one done. That one done. And that one. Right, just going to put a little grub screw in there. I'm just going to wrap a little bit of thread seal tape around it to make sure we get a completely oil tight seal. A bit nasty, horrible stuff. And that should be enough. Yeah, stick that in there. That's fine in there. Okay. Nice and clean. Right, that's that end done. Now what we're going to do is prepare it to go on the engine stand, and then everything will be a lot easier, a lot firmer, and be less messing around with the engine rocking. Right, we've got the engine fitted on this engine building stand, which is an absolute godsend. It makes the job a hell of a lot easier, because with this nice little handle you can turn the thing through 180 degrees. Now, next week on Inside Motors, we're going to put the crankshaft in and finally start to really build the engine. But till then, what we're going to do is cover it up, keep things clean, keep the dust out, which is something you always should do when you're building an engine. Remember, cleanliness is next to godliness when you're building engines. See you next week on Inside Motors, and enjoy yourself. Cheers.
And John will be up to tricks with the tools of his trade again next week. Also on next week's show, Monsieur Ian Royle travels to Saint-Tropez for a spot of Riviera driving in the dandy new revision of Mazda's classic MX-5. Touring car driver Will Hoy takes BMW's M3 Evolution to Alton Park and really puts it through its paces. And our American cousin Steve Parker takes a bird's eye view of traffic in downtown LA. See you then.